Welcome to the show, the Zodiac Files volume. Was this 15? Introducing my friends. Pulling up the chat here. I don't know what you guys have been saying, but it looks like a couple of you guys have populated in. Introducing my friends, the Gray brothers, Andrew and Adam. And we're going to be talking a viable suspect for the Donna Lass murders. That is Joseph Stephen Holt, if I got that correct. Welcome to the show, gents.
Howdy.
Howdy, guys.
Glad to have you guys. Druzer making several appearances. Adam making his first appearance here. Yeah, we're a little late. We had some audio issues. Sorry about that, gents. But we're still trying to bring in Richard here. He's having a little audio issue. So just jump in whenever, Rich, if you get that resolved. But yeah, so we're talking about Donna Lass and some other seemingly possibly connected crimes here. If you want to lead us off on how you found this information, Adam, and we'll go on to some of the graphics, show the audience.
Yeah, well, I'd like to pretend it was like amazing detective work, how I came up with this. But in reality, I think I was watching like YouTube on a lunch break, and I saw. I'm not a fan of Nancy Grace, and I think it's probably the only Nancy Grace video maybe ever watched, because it was called Bloodline Detectives, the Lake Tahoe Strangler. And because of Donna Lass, I was interested in murders in the Lake Tahoe area at that time. And they were the episode was about the murder of Bryn Rainey, and what was the...
Carol Anderson was the younger one.
Carol Anderson. In Bryn Rainey was in 1977. And what caught my attention about 7 minutes and 20 seconds into the video, if someone wants to look it up on YouTube, the detective, she goes missing. She works at the Sierra Tahoe Hotel Casino, just like Donna Lass. This is 7 years after Donna Lass. And the killer, presumably, the DA is being interviewed after they have solved this case. And the killer called the casino and said that she was sick and would not be able to make it to work that day. Just sort of very, very similar to the Donna Lass. And you know, it was just a way of buying a little bit more time before people realize that she's missing. I think her body was found about a month later in a shallow grave at State Line horse riding camp or something like that. I think it was people on horses that found it. And I think through genealogical DNA, they ended up later, I'm not sure how many years ago it was, not that long ago, connecting the two murders through stuff that was found on the bodies of the two victims to Joseph Stephen Holt, who was kind of a real estate agent in the Lake Tahoe area. And I think he seemed to sort of like own a lot of properties out there that he would rent out. And anyways, I'd never heard that before. I don't think it was documented anywhere other than in this weird Nancy Grace episode. And so as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, you know, what are the odds that that's just a coincidence? You know, the same hotel, you know, two young people being abducted in the middle of the night and just disappearing. You know, anyways, that's how it came about.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I saw a little bit about it on the Tap and Talk thread of people, kind of summarizing that. But I gotta say, I'm sure this surprised Andrew as well. It's amazing to me that Donna Lass wasn't mentioned with the similarity of the phone call. You'd even think like just maybe one line, like, "Hey, also it's quite similar to this Donna Lass thing that happened, which totally got blown up from the supposed connection through the Zodiac correspondence." But yeah, it's interesting stuff.
I think the reason why it wasn't picked up, the connection, was because so Holt died in 2014, heart attack, I think, and then I think it was about 2018 that the DNA link on both bodies was matched to Stephen Holt or Joseph Holt, who wasn't on anyone's radar. He wasn't a suspect or anything. Mm-hmm. Had the news come out 2 years later after the identification of Donna Lass's skull, yep. I think they probably would have gotten there.
Yep.
But wasn't until my amazing brother watched Nancy Grace that the smoking gun was discovered. It's not a smoking gun, of course, but it's very compelling.
Yeah, and I guess making it maybe a little more interesting, I sent the information to Drew and Richard, and then we started us among other people were looking at Joseph Holt's addresses and background. He would have been 23 at the time of Donna Lass's murder. We know that at least in his obituary it says in 1974 he moved to the Lake Tahoe area after graduating from Berkeley in political science. He sort of spent his time between San Jose, apparently, and Lake Tahoe. So we looked up his addresses, and it seems that maybe the real estate business was started by his mother, who owned some properties in the Lake Tahoe area, and we could see that I think it was in 1967 was the first purchase of a property in Lake Tahoe, which was very close to where these murders happened. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that while he's going to school at Berkeley, that he's going up on weekends or after school working for his mother in some of these rental properties. So it's certainly plausible that in 1970 he could have been in Lake Tahoe at the time of Donna Lass's disappearance.
Yeah, it's the weekend of September 6th, 1970. I'm not sure what the school schedule would be, but he could have been home with laundry or something. That's what I would do. The earliest date that we can state that Joseph was living there was 1971. But these reports are pretty vague. So it's very possible he was there a year earlier. It seems like he didn't get his real estate license until 77. But when he actually got into it, I can't. I wish we could say what he was doing between 70 and 74, but we just don't have any information. So whether he was still in school when he was 23 or had graduated, yet to be determined. I want to do a shout out to Gorilla Train and Shake Dog Shake, because they've really helped with the research here. We have a little bit of handwriting from Holt and some documents regarding the residence and his licenses and stuff like that.
Yeah, it looks like Labor Day 1970 was September 7th. So if that's a holiday, maybe a little more wiggle room there for some extracurricular activities.
Yeah, it's a weekend, so surely he could have been visiting his parents. or living there. We don't know. But it was a very small population in 1970. We're probably talking hundreds. I don't know if anyone has further research on that in the chat here, but I think it was a handful of years later that the population grew to thousands.
Which town would this be? Tahoe or South Lake?
South Lake Tahoe.
And
I think it was very small at that time, maybe like 1,200 or something like that pops into my mind. I don't know whether that's correct.
No, I think it was still popular for visiting, but in terms of residents,
yeah, for sure. It's like a weekend getaway place, summer getaway, winter getaway, skiing and all that.
Yeah, it looks like census is like almost 13K, but that's probably not South Lake Tahoe. That's probably the overall. It says there's not much information.
But that's currently or at that in the 70s?
At 1970, but it's that I'm sure they're probably pulling that in from, larger overall cities as opposed to.
Still, that's even if that's correct, that's a pretty small population.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
All these women go get murdered and disappear.
Yeah, it's like past 20K. Actually, it's probably a lot more than that because that's year 2000. But interesting stuff. I mean, but the fact that we can't put him, he doesn't move up there until after 1974. He'd have to be doing some traveling, right?
Well, we have him listed in 71. It's just before that when only his parents owned it. He would later take ownership in, I think, 74.
Gotcha. Okay, so he took over the deed or whatever.
Yeah. I wonder if Richard's using Google Chrome. I think that's. I don't know what his problem is here.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Rich, maybe try another browser if you have one. We'll keep working on it. I mean, if you're referring to the Zodiac, I don't know. I mean, we'll get into what we think Stephen Holt is or isn't, when we burn that bridge. Do you guys want to start pulling some of these graphics, or do you want to get this PowerPoint going, Druz? What do you think?
Yeah, let's throw up the PowerPoint.
Okay. This will be a PXF first. So I've got it open. Let's see what I can do here. I think it will have to be my entire screen. It's a slideshow.
Cat Daddy, this t-shirt's for you, buddy.
Is this working? Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Okay. Pretty sure we're sharing. So here's our guy, Joseph Holt.
He's about 18 here, I think.
Looks like a little wormy piece of scum. Okay, let's keep cruising, see whatever we got. Little timeline here. 77, 79. A bearded man starts balding in about 94. He's got business in front, party in the back in 94 as well. 97. It's kind of the hair's starting to go, and then he makes it to 2014 he passed, and you said it was heart failure, Andrew?
I think it was a heart attack. Yeah.
Heart attack. I wonder if it was a natural heart attack or what were his habits like? Did he drink? What else do we got on him?
I haven't gotten that deep. We know, like Donna Lass, he was an avid skiing enthusiast, which may have brought him to the Tahoe area, as it did Donna.
Yep.
But these are all well, the ones with the blue background are all DMV photos. He was never arrested. He had no record at all.
That's interesting. So no previous So what else we got here? A deed
So-
of trust.
Yeah, so this is showing his parents taking ownership there.
His mother, I think their parents were divorced. I'm not sure.
67. What do we got here?
So
Social
he's-
Security application.
He's 17 or 18 here. I mean, you got to look at the handwriting, right? It doesn't really match to my eye. His T's are crossed far too high.
No candy cane J's.
Yeah. At any rate, it would definitely be a question in the chat if we didn't have it. So here it is.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gorilla Train.
Yeah. Shout outs, Gorilla. Good looks. Some licenses. What is it? Just real estate brokers and salesperson. Wasn't Kane supposedly in real estate as well up there?
Yeah, I think so.
He was, yes.
His issue date is on my birthday, which is ironic.
So you'd think if it's, if the population is only, 13,000 or however big South Lake Tahoe is at the time, that the odds that he would know Kane would probably be pretty good. Like that's a small town.
Yeah, although I guess supposedly Kane didn't work up there in that office till after the whole last thing. But
I think a lot of the Kane research really needs to be verified, at least to my satisfaction. I wish Richard was here, who prepared this.
I think you just rejoined. Let me see if I can pardon my screen. Richie, can you hear anything? Okay, well, we got him there if his mic happens to work. So we have this Bryn Rainey. Is this the first one?
Yes, 1977.
Yeah, I think that's where she was last seen, which I think was a bar she was at before work. And then she disappeared between then and going to her shift at the Sierra.
So Bryn used to, well, I mean, I don't think she'd been there very long, perhaps a month. Donna had similarly just joined. She'd been living at her friend's the Lowe's until 2 days before her death. I think she'd only perhaps slept one night at her new residence, but Bryn apparently would have a drink before her shift, and Donna, I think, afterwards. So that bar could indeed be relevant. You see the 1390 Kelleher Road.
Yep.
That's the residence that Holt's mother owned, and where he possibly was staying. Now, the interesting thing, of course, is that with both Rainey and Lass, there's a lot of indications that a lot of personal information was known by the killer. In Lass's case, both the landlord's name and where she worked. With Rainey, certainly where she worked was known. And she did have her ID with her on when her body was found, so perhaps that's where the information came from. But in both instances, if we make the assumption that the anonymous male caller was the killer, then both would seem to have been both calls would seem to be placed in order to buy the killer time, and you only buy yourself time if there's some sort of connection.
I noticed I was just sort of rewatching that Nancy Grace episode. I don't even like saying the name Nancy Grace, but and in it they interview a woman who dated Holt, and how she met him was she was looking for a place to rent as a young lady, and on Ski Run Road, which I think is which is very close to Donna Lass and all this stuff. And he was sort of the real estate agent showing her property, and he ended up sort of like they rented a jacuzzi, and he was like holding her head underwater and stuff like this. He got a little crazy, but if we sort of interesting if that was part of his MO for victims, is people that he was, trying to rent apartments to or being a real estate agent for. And we know that both Donna Lass, she had literally just moved into her apartment like the day before or 2 days before she disappeared.
I think the 4th, which would have been the Friday, was the first night that she actually moved into the Monteverde's apartment, and it would have been the 5th at 6:00 p.m. that she began her shift, which ended at 2 a.m. on the 6th.
Yeah. So it's possible, unknown but possible, that that's how he, had his victims were done through work somehow. That
new renters.
He had this personal information. That's the kind of chit chat you would do with the real estate. Oh, where do you work? I'm doing the night shift at the Sahara, and you can get this kind of information. And he was, a relatively good-looking young guy, so interest the young ladies, perhaps, or if
Yeah, I guess he would have been 2 years younger than Donna.
I don't know.
I think she was 25.
So Bryn Rainey, she was a skier as well. Is that what Rich's article says, or do we know that?
We'll let Rich get back to us on that. I don't recall.
We'll let Rich get back to us on that.
I think so.
So we have Bryn Rainey, and then who is the second one? Was that Jane Allen?
No, Jane Allen was perhaps a friend, but Carol Anderson was the 16-year-old who was killed in 1969. Mm-hmm. And unlike Bryn and Donna, there was no phone call, no measures to delay investigation. I'm not sure if it was in the side of the road that her body was found. But,
yeah, I think she was just dumped on the side of the road.
Yeah, and she was walking home from a party late at night. Mm-hmm. So all of these could have happened on the road.
Yeah. And with Bryn Rainey, that it seemed to be like must have been a very shallow grave that he put her in, and if horseback riders could see it while going past, and he'd taken her clothes and ID and stuff out, and I think they were sort of off her and they were nearby, not buried. And that sort of just made me think again about how them finding Donna Lass's skull, which certainly could have been a similar kind of shallow grave kind of scenario where an animal or something has come in and dug up part of it.
Yeah, I wish we had more information on the rest of Donna Lass's remains. Like, we really can't say that they weren't nearby. They just weren't discovered. So how the head came off is unknown.
Yeah, there really wasn't much in those article statements that seemed to leak about that.
I guess we do know that both these victims were strangled. Their what they call it, the hyoid bone was broken in both, and I think they had other injuries as well. But
I mean, this is not a great question, but seemingly so it's touch DNA that links him to both of these both of these scenes? Could it just be possible that like he dated both of these women, or does it appear more sinister if it's all over the clothes? And
Well, Bryn was 27 and Carol was 16.
yeah, so that'd be unlikely for Carol.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Was it touch DNA, or I thought maybe it was hair or something like blood? Something.
I don't know. I just know that DNA from both victims matched, and then eventually they found Holt.
Yeah, touch DNA seems a little unlikely for bodies that have been left outside. I would think must have been something a little more, especially if these are 40, 50 years old.
Yeah, stronger DNA sample. Do we want to try to go on to this next one?
Sure.
This is looks like Rich's stuff. Chubb Lake here. So here's the lodge. Of course, Donner here. Around in the snow, which we know is... I also have Rich's articles linked below in the description for anyone who wants to check those out. Of course, we have the Peek Through the Pines card here, showing the Sierra Club.
Is this... Do you know what this one is, Drew? Is this Richard's measuring of the card distance-wise with the two?
Yeah. So there's a few indications that the sender of the Pines card, be it Zodiac or not, be it Donna's killer or not, seem to have a few ideas about where the body might be. Certainly, there's no shortage of pines, but she was, the text does work. Past Lake Tahoe area, in the pines, and if the Sierra Club mentioned is Claire Tappan Lodge, I'm going to do an injustice to the. So maybe we'll wait for Richard here.
Yeah, around in the snow. I know there supposedly was some snow there, and I guess maybe this is signifying the location here. I don't know if this is the Yuba Gap here with Chubb Lake. I'm not that familiar with this area.
Yeah, so that's where the skull was found.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got something. So 1402 miles. I guess there was like Richard equated that to like what 2-something inches. I know he has the measurement in the other graphics. Let's see if I can pull in Rich real quick here. Rich, do we have you?
Hello?
Now we've got him. Yay!
There he is.
Perfect
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
Welcome to the show, Richard Grinell, ZodiacCiphers.com.
I don't know what, you know what I did? What I had to do was I had to plug my camera in, and then the accept thing came at the top, and then I took the camera back out and I was able to carry on.
Interesting. Yeah, well, this computer's...
I think there's an auto levels section for your mic there.
Yeah, I might be able to help him. I might be able to help him out with
He's
that.
a little hot.
Yeah.
Richard's coming in hot.
Hang on, I'll move it away. Is that better?
That's
It
better.
is.
Yeah, that's good.
That's perfect.
Glad you can join us, buddy.
Sorry, I've downloaded some source forges that have boosted my microphone volume, so I don't know how loud it is now. Is that about right?
Yeah, I think you're good now. I think you're good now.
Okay.
Richard, can you see the screen? What are we looking at here, bud?
You're looking at them. Well, I don't know what you've explained about it, but
Not much.
around in the snow was upside down. So what I did was flip the card round 180 degrees.
Yep.
And measured from the Sierra Club edge to the center of the hole.
Mm-hmm.
And that measured 2.19 inches, which was 14.02 miles. But if you think that the punch hole on the 13-hole postcard is about 1.58 miles across, it's about 1.96 square miles when you put it onto a map. And her jawbone was found within that circle when you use those measurements in the Pines card.
I mean, so my question is this too intricate for Joseph Stephen Holt, Rich? I mean, this seems to be more of a Zodiac thing from what I'm reading.
Well, you could, if you have a degree in political science, that's no problem.
Yeah, well, I think it's more along the lines of Zodiac, but
Right.
like I've said before, the advertisement was of real estate, and Holt would eventually become a real estate agent. So that's the only link I can find with Joseph Stephen Holt.
I wonder if Zodiac could have, I know obviously our obvious question is going to be, Holt as the Zodiac, but just hypothesizing, I wonder if Zodiac could have known this guy, if Zodiac actually did spend any time up in Tahoe,
Or Berkeley.
Another type of framing situation, just speculation on my part.
Well, currently, I would say about 50% on whether it was Joseph Stephen Holt or otherwise. How much of that remaining 50% I would go with Zodiac? I think it would be pretty low, even despite the measurements. That could be all one big coincidence, but I don't know what anybody else thinks about it.
Go ahead, gentlemen.
I don't discount it. I think
what? What are we?
A connection between Zodiac and Donna Lass and the card. I think the one thing we know about Zodiac is that we don't know a hell of a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I've always thought Donna Lass was one of the more intriguing outsider, Zodiac possible murders, but I don't know. I guess I've always thought it was probably him, but there's really no way of knowing, right? Like,
do you like Holt better for Donna, given the seemingly matching MO?
I think so. I mean, it's just would be such a crazy coincidence. The other possibility is that Holt saw an article or something about Donna Lass and was copycatting.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you would hold on to that kind of idea for 7 years or however long and then try and impersonate it, but I don't know. I mean, I guess it's possible, if he sees her ID, he knows that she works at the Sierra, that he decides, oh, I remember that story with Donna Lass and the Zodiac, and tries to copycat it. But I would say it's more likely that's just kind of his MO. It's such an unusual thing. Like, the hundreds or thousands of crimes that I've read about or learned about, I've never heard of the killer doing that before, calling the victim's employer and saying they're going to be away for a few days to buy time. There may be other cases, but I think if I ever read one, it would pop right out like this one did. It was such incredible coincidence.
And the same hotel casino twice, it would be seemingly unlikely.
Yeah.
So Bryn, what was Bryn's occupation? Was she the same thing?
I'm not sure what a Keno runner is, but that sounds more associated with the casino itself, whereas Donna Lass was a nurse. Night nurse, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the next one. So here's your measurement here, Richard. 2.19 inches, 14.02 miles.
So this would be using the earlier Phillips map ratio. Is that correct, Richard?
Well, you'd use the same map scale as the Phillips maps, 6.4 miles to the inch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if we take away the measurements, just simply flipping the card round, you've got Sierra Club, i.e. Claire Tappan Lodge, lined up perfectly with that burial hole, which is effectively now to the west. Even that alone is quite clever, and I'm sure Joseph Stephen Holt, being a very educated man, had the capability to create such a card. Whether it is him or not is yet again another matter.
I mean, I guess we're talking about a even more intricate hoax than the Eureka card, which is relatively simple with text and a snowman, as opposed to this having these specific, measurements, the flipped upside down, text depending how you're looking at it. I don't know. And then along with the 13 hole card, it just seems like a lot of work,
I would just see this as an extension to the Mount Diablo code. When he sent the Little List letter and June the 26th letter, button letter, that was quite a clever design, if you believe what me and Druzer have found. But this is probably just a further extension to that. Whether Joseph Stephen Holt read earlier Zodiac material and got the inspiration to develop this, that's another matter. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's just a tougher task. It seems like, a much more intricate hoax than, other things that we've seen. I think I would, between the two, I would just lean probably more into Zodiac as far as the construction of the correspondence. The actual Donna Lass crime itself, that could be another story. But I don't know. It's interesting. I like what you guys found. What else we got here?
This is from 1975. This was an interesting incident, which wasn't conclusively linked to Holt, but I bet my bottom dollar it was him. The next slide is an article regarding it. Maybe we could slip over there.
Oh, I read this. This was the shotgun thing, and this was absolutely insane. This was okay. I guess
maybe it's the next one.
The Sundown Trail, yeah, Golden Bear Trail.
The shotgun attack on the couple was at the end of Saddle Road, and that was just about a mile away from the residence that he was associated with at 1390 Keller Road. So this isn't far from his address. Where they were shot with the shotgun was at the terminus of Saddle Road on the western edge of it.
Right, and I had the slides in the wrong order, I think. Yeah. Okay, go back one to the photo there.
Oh.
Yeah, this is the witness sketch of the 1975 incident.
The shotgun guy. It literally looks exactly like this guy's face.
Yeah. So there's, if I'm getting this correctly, there was two couples parked in a parking lot. One couple was inside the car. The other couple was outside the car. A flashlight approaches and then shuts off, total darkness, and then they are blasted with a shotgun.
Yeah, that was on December the 13th, 1969.
Oh, I thought it was 75.
No, the couple, Heidi Hoffman and Larry Parsons, were attacked at the end of Saddle Road on December 1969, and
Wow.
this came a month after the Zodiac threatened school buses in Lake Tahoe.
Okay.
Which Zodiac letter is that, Rich?
There was a telephone Zodiac threatening South Lake Tahoe. There's a news article on it, newspaper article on it. This was, I think, a month after that threat on buses in Lake Tahoe by somebody claiming to be Zodiac. It doesn't mean it was Zodiac.
Right.
And then, of course, this shotgun attack on December 1969 at the end of Saddle Road near Heavenly Valley Ski Resort occurred. So, again, we've got a little coincidence of a Zodiac threatening Lake Tahoe, and a month and a bit later, this double shooting happened. And this, of course, this was only a mile from 1390 Keller Road, the address that Joseph Stephen Holt had access to. Whether he lived there at that time or was visiting there is another matter. But it's highly suspicious, bearing in mind when they raided his house eventually, they found it full of firearms and shotguns
Yeah. Did I send the pic of his arsenal there?
Oh yeah, I think I did see that in there somewhere. Maybe it was in the emails.
Oh, it's totally disorganized.
No,
I sent these things.
lost in translation. No, it wasn't as bad as you think.
So that composite sketch was from '69, or was that the Los Gatos?
Because it said 75 on the sketch.
No, that's 75, but that's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
He attacked a couple. I think he tried to rob their vehicle. And obviously 6 years earlier was the attack on Heidi Hoffman and Larry Parsons in Saddle Road. Now, on that occasion, he came with a flashlight and a shotgun and shot them. I don't know what his intention was, whether it was just an attempted thrill kill or whether he was thinking of robbing their vehicle, because there were two couples parked there at the time, but he only shot at one couple. But again, this is uncanny timing, bearing in mind Zodiac's threat on Lake Tahoe about a month earlier.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that opens up his, it seems like it's essentially these crimes against lone women, but then approaching a group with the kind of, shotgun spray kind of opens up his MO a bit more, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And don't forget, Carol Anderson was last seen leaving a party at 11:30 on Regina Road. And that's just a few hundred meters from Joseph Stephen Holt's house, and is less than a mile from the attack site of that couple in December 1969. Like both their addresses, the party where she left at 11:30 and where he lived were both less than a mile from that shooting.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
and you look at that arsenal, like that is a seriously sought off shotgun.
Yeah, and that tied in nicely.
That's not for hunting.
No, and this is 2 years before the murders that were conclusively linked to him.
Yeah, I don't know how the rule changed, but it's not legal to saw off a shotgun in the States currently. So I don't know when that came about, but
yeah.
I know they eventually dropped the hammer on that.
So I wonder if he was a real criminal before real estate.
Well, I guess I don't know if you have that thing about, they found when they went through his house, they found one of the things they found was an article, right, about is it Los Gatos? Is that what it's?
I don't know how it's pronounced.
And Jose. Do you remember what the crime was there?
I think he attempted to steal an automobile.
With a shotgun? Or
yeah,
some kind of
with a gun. I don't know what weapon it was. And
he was unsuccessful?
I believe so, but that was the identikit picture they got of him. I think right. They and obviously they backtracked. They didn't know it was Joseph Stephen Holt at the time, I believe. They found that newspaper cutting of that attack at his residence, and he obviously kept it for a reason. He put a notation in the margin as well. So clearly he was responsible for that attack.
What was the location of that attack, Rich?
Well, I think you just said it, wasn't it? Los Gatos or
Gatos?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's which area is that?
San Jose sort of area, I think.
Huh.
I don't know. I mean, I'm Canadian.
One of the slides had the location on it. So it would have been 40 years later that they found the article in his residence after his death.
Yes, when they identified him in 2019.
I think so.
They obviously
around that.
I don't know what all the weapons were still lurking around after that time, and that article was obviously kept for 30, 40 years.
Yeah. Whenever I hear something like that, it always reminds me of like Israel Keys or something like that, where you think they're just a serial killer, and then you find out that it's also like also robbing banks and
It's funny, really. It's funny, really, because he kept that newspaper article for that length of time, the sort of thing you'd expect from Zodiac.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Although I would have expected them to find a lot more in his treasure trove if he was Zodiac rich, you know.
Of course, unless he got rid of it long before. Yeah,
kept things separately. Yeah, which.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we know that he owned a lot of properties. It wasn't just one, so it's hard to say, you know, where his treasure trove might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about?
He had 4 addresses. He had 4 addresses within 4 miles of Donna Lass's residence at 3893 Pioneer Trail Road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
you guys heard of this one? Dion brought up Dana Lull, 74. Is she up there in Tahoe? I'm not sure. I'm familiar with that.
I don't know a lot about that one either.
She's been linked with Larry Kane, hasn't she?
Mm.
Well, I mean, at this point, I think it's reasonable to look into his involvement with all of these. There was also, was it weeks or months previous to Donna's disappearance that there was 2 attacks in the parking lot of the Sierra Tahoe.
That's right. Yeah, and there was one. Was it the year after? A nearby casino where a woman was killed by somebody working at the casino.
Mm-hmm.
And he was recently released a few years ago.
Damn.
Oh, he's been like a few years from currently he was released, that guy?
Yeah, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but there was a casino not far from the Sahara Tahoe. And there was, I think he abducted her or attacked her in the car park, which maybe he got the idea from reading about Donna Lass.
That wasn't. I have a Wanda Gale.
Wanda Gale Low. No,
that's 68.
No, it's not that one. I could have a look quickly.
Paula Pope, 1972. So I'm looking at my my personal murder map, which is totally
I knew you were
thing to have.
This guy's cheating.
What name did you say?
Paula Pope.
Doesn't ring a bell. Oh yes, I think that might be right. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I think
September 3rd, 72.
Have heard of this thing. Abducted from West Las Vegas, body found in a mine shaft in the desert near Needles, California, shot with a .22. I've actually been to Needles, California. It's one of the most desolate places on earth. Won't be going back. So,
I think to go further, we have to probably talk about the Donna Lass crime and where we think it may have occurred.
I've got the answer actually quickly.
I mean,
I've got the answer quickly.
let's hear it, Rich.
Sorry. She Trudy Ann Hiller or Hyler, 22, went missing from the Calneva Lodge and Casino after finishing her shift. Reported as being bundled into a vehicle in the parking lot of the casino. This was 1971. July 13th, 1971. She was later found strangled and stabbed 2 days later under a rock ledge between the casino and Lakeshore.
Wow. And that was South Lake Tahoe as well?
Yeah, very close to the Sahara.
God, I would not want to live in that town.
Yeah, for how small it is, this is it's pretty rough, but
yeah, and the tactics of the presumed killer of Donna Lass really killed the investigation because they didn't start looking for her for 2 weeks.
Yep, exactly.
So if Holt made contact with Lass on the night and was observed by people at the bar, a bartender or something like that, that 2 weeks destroys any likelihood that he could have been identified at that point. 2 weeks is a long time if you work every night at a bar.
He could have been back in San Jose.
Yeah.
Did he maintain another San Jose address during this time?
I'm not sure. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns with Holt.
What I find interesting is that Bryn Rainey was last seen. She was last seen in the Bitter Creek Saloon at about 10 o'clock, and then she obviously left. Carol Anderson was last seen at Regina Road, and was last seen leaving that party at 11:30. Her home was in Lower Kingsbury, so she'd have been heading up to Lake Tahoe Boulevard exactly the same as Bryn Rainey would have been heading onto Lake Tahoe Boulevard to get to her job at the Sahara. And Donna Lass would have been coming down Highway 50 and Lake Tahoe Boulevard if she'd walked home from the casino that night. So it is feasible they were all abducted in the region of one road.
Yeah.
Just cruising around in his death machine.
Absolutely, yeah. Just cruising around looking for victims late at night. And it's no coincidence, I don't think, that two of the victims, Donna and Bryn Rainey, worked at the same Sahara Tahoe, and one was starting her shift at 2 and one was ending her shift at 2. So it's conceivable they could have been abducted at a similar time, or at least around midnight onwards. Yeah. And when especially when you think Carol Anderson went missing gone 11:30. So we could have the times linking up and the Lake Tahoe Boulevard. This is a little bit too much of a coincidence when you know 2 of the victims were linked to Joseph Stephen Holt.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what about all this? So in that case, Richard, do you have, going back to Andrew's question, do you have Donna leaving her shift, and then are you assuming that she got picked up on her walk home?
I think she probably got home, but I'm not discounting the fact she could have been abducted. But what I find interesting is that person, we talked about the phone call, 2 people ringing in, Joseph Stephen Holt probably, making an excuse why Bryn Rainey wouldn't be coming to work. The same happened with Donna Lass. I'm wondering whether Joseph Stephen Holt used the she's out of town on a family illness ruse, because it would have worked for both of them, because Bryn Rainey had family in Ohio, so that equally would have bought plenty of time, just like Donna Lass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and both were so new to the area. Like, so you have a super duper small town, and 2 young ladies who have just moved there, just started working, and yet, evidently the killer believed that he could be connected to both of them, assuming it's the same killer.
And don't forget, both Donna Lass and Joanne Getche knew each other, and they both knew Jane Allen because they drank after work hours, and Jane Allen lived about 600 meters from the residence of Joseph Stephen Holt. She lived at 4180 Saddle Road, and obviously Joseph Stephen Holt had access to that residence at 1390 Keller Road, and they were separated and by only 600 meters. And when you think that area where she lived, Jane Allen, that was a cul-de-sac. Her only exit to work would have gone past his house if he'd lived there.
Yep.
If she'd walked the quickest route, it would have taken her within 40 meters of his house. So it's quite possible that Jane Allen and Joseph Stephen Holt could have known each other, or passed each other, or talked to each other, and somehow got speaking to each other at the casino as well, which would play into the idea of a person ringing up, making an excuse for Donna Lass being out of town, knowing the name of her landlord, Nick Davis. You'd only know that if you were very closely acquainted to her and knew she'd just moved into that apartment.
But how about
if you were the real estate agent,
Yep.
Who was trying to rent the apartments
Yep. That's what I was
for
going to say.
commission.
And
Yeah.
Davis was new to his occupation as the landlord as well. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. He was
There was, a
taking
new
over.
there was a new landlord taking over from Nick Davis.
How far is this, Rich? Donna Lass's home to Joseph Stephen Holt's home?
I think it's less than a mile.
Wow. And then Jane Allen's even
Jane-
closer, somewhere in the middle.
Well, Jane Allen, like I said, 600 meters from 1390 Keller Road.
Yeah.
Keller Road is about 0.9 miles to Donna Lass's home at Pioneer Trail Road. And the Bitter Creek Saloon, where Bryn Rainey was last seen, is about a couple of miles to the Sahara Tahoe.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a bit of a straightaway. So here's my thing, right? Donna Lass's friend that she's supposed to meet up with, that Morph interviewed, shows up. She questions a bunch of people. No one can remember anything. If this guy was around drinking with Jane and drinking with Donna, maybe drinking with Bryn, don't we think there would be some mention of her hanging out with someone? I know that's a bit of a stretch, but it's like no name or description of this guy ever comes up when we obviously have a comp sketch of him with these other crimes, Like,
He may have been infrequent, though, because he wasn't living there
true.
permanently until 74. So
Yeah.
he may have, I don't think for a minute he moved to Lake Tahoe in 74 without ever having visited the place. You usually get
Right.
accustomed to a place and know you want to move there.
Right.
Especially if your mother owns property there.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we have him listed as residing there in 71.
Mm.
He didn't own it there. Presumably, he wasn't living alone at his mother's house.
But like I said, they may have been loose acquaintances with him when he visited for a week here and 2 weeks there. So he wouldn't have been in their back pocket. And perfect for him, actually. If he was the murderer of Donna Lass, what a great way. He can just travel there and move back to San Jose, and nobody will ever be any the wiser.
Yeah. That's true.
And if we stretch our imagination, it's probably too much of a stretch to say if he was the real estate agent at that time, which doesn't seem likely, but if he was at the time of Donna Lass's disappearance, then it's possible that he had a key to her apartment.
Well,
Because it always struck me when I was reading the
Yep.
in private investigators report, there was this long period of time before anyone went into her new apartment because of the phone call and all that. And I was like, I always thought the property manager or landlord was, a likely suspect just because it was his name that was dropped in the phone call, and it seemed to be him that was, because his name was used, causing the confusion that created this long delay before anyone realized she was missing. And he's the one going to check on the apartment and saying, "Oh, no, everything looks fine," before
Yeah. If they had investigated right away, he would have been on their list.
Mhm.
and also there was one resident of the apartment complex where Donna Lass lived that moved away from that apartment shortly after her
Yep.
disappearance. That was Raymond Jacobs, the taxi driver.
I saw that in there, yeah.
Hmm.
But he was supposedly a cooperating source, right, Rich?
He was a cooperating source, but I wonder whether the private detective made him a cooperating source as a ruse to get close to him to see if he could find anything out.
Yeah, it's a good.
Because usually if somebody moves away from an area shortly after a disappearance or murder, they become a little bit suspicious. Now, I'm not saying he's responsible. I'm just
Right.
saying it's common sense to at least investigate somebody who quickly lifts up sticks and moves away.
Yeah, immediately after the headline. Here's another thing, like, So I know her apartment is untouched or unentered for some time. What about, like, do they not come in and fingerprint the front door? Because obviously if any sort of link comes up with Holt, of course, if he's a real estate agent, he could always say, well, I was in there showing her the apartment before her disappearance, so that's why my fingerprints were on the door. You know what I mean? But it just, I don't see no forensics,
I'd like to know the mechanism of that door of her apartment. Did it automatically lock when she shut it, or did it need a key to shut it? Was it open when the police arrived? This could tell you a lot.
Well, and I know that the landlord Davis had been in the apartment before the police were there.
Yeah.
He had gone in and done it seemed like the police, it's been a while since I've read the private investigator's report, but it seemed like the police didn't go actually to her apartment until her sister came trying to find out what happened, which was almost 2 weeks after she disappeared. And then the car was there and the apartment seemed normal, but and I think he said something like, I don't know if he said no fingerprints were found or that they didn't look for fingerprints, but there was certainly no.
If he entered the apartment without the cops, then we don't know anything about fingerprints.
Mm-hmm.
What about this one? You guys ever heard of this? Lass worked at a record shop in Vallejo.
That's a different Donna Lass. I think they may have been cousins, same namesake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was Pisanti Music. That was next to the residence that William Andrew had access to. But yes, it was the same name. But was it related, Drew, or just?
I think they were cousins. Maybe I'm wrong.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's one of those uncanny coincidences, isn't it?
Yep.
Maybe.
Well, presumably, maybe it's the key to everything. We'll see.
I mean, I think the key to a lot of things is the caller to the Sahara Tahoe Hotel when Donna Lass went missing, mentioning the name of the landlord.
Yeah.
How do you get that? That doesn't. That's not just come up in your first conversation with someone at a bar.
No, you have to be closely related to her in some way, live at the apartment complex. I mean, don't forget she moved in on the 5th. So the only people that would have known that she had a landlord called Mr. Davis would have been known after the morning when she signed the documents to move into that apartment. Otherwise, how would they have known? So,
right.
There's a bit of context that may come into play, though. This is such a small town. If everyone knows everyone, maybe you do mention your landlord's name.
I always thought it was strange that a landlord was making that call, or a property manager or whatever. Like,
he wouldn't make it.
It's bizarre.
Somebody made it.
I can understand why they would call him to do a wellness check.
Exactly.
But for him to call the work is odd.
That's the other theory that potentially negates everything we're talking about, is that there was dates were confused, assumptions were made, communications were misheard, and the Donna Lass phone call was in fact a misinterpretation of what the police assumed was the reason why Donna wasn't around.
Well, I've looked at that private investigator's report and thought, it was written so confusingly about the sequence of events of what someone called the hotel and then someone called the police and the police called the landlord, and there was this confusing
roundabout.
Well, maybe there was no call. Maybe it was just, something, mixed up. And then when you hear about a Bryn Rainey thing, it almost convinced me, oh no, it was the killer that
Right.
called. But
There was definitely a call because somebody rang the guy at the Sahara Tahoe and left the message that she'd been called out of town. This was denied by Nick Davis, so it wasn't Nick Davis who made the call, and there's no reason why he would make the call, because if Donna Lass got a message that her family was ill, she'd have either used a phone if she didn't have one from the landlord and contacted to see how serious the illness was and whether she needed to travel up to Sioux Falls, or she would have made the phone call herself. She wouldn't say to the landlord, "You make the call," and he denied it anyway.
Yeah, it's not like they're close friends.
That's what I was coming to. She would obviously call herself.
Of course, she
You know.
would, yeah.
Um,
And the point is, her landlord wasn't Nick Davis until the 5th. So whoever called in making that excuse knew after the 5th.
Do you know when Lass was scheduled to work next?
That's a good question. I've been trying to find out, because clearly it wasn't the next day, was it? Because the phone call either came in on the 7th or the 8th. So the person knew that she wasn't due into work on the 6th. Otherwise, the phone call would have been pointless, ringing in saying she wasn't coming into work on the 7th or the 8th, because, you know, he would have known that she wasn't due in on the 6th. So that he could have delayed making excuses for her, knowing she was off the following day after she was last seen. So when she was seen with that strange blonde-haired man by the bottle shop, she wasn't due in work that evening. But whether she was due back the next day or the following day, I'm guessing probably.
Yeah, there's so many unknowns with the Lass case. Like, it's hard. Like, either she was abducted from her nurse's station, evidence being her uniform was there. Apparently, her ledger was half done for a client at 1:45 ish. Yeah. So either she's abducted there, or she's abducted on her way home, or she makes it home and she's abducted from her home, or she was seen the next day with a guy with blonde hair who may or may not have any involvement.
yeah, I always thought it was more like what's her name, Judith Hakari kind of scenario, because her car was at her apartment.
Yep.
So I don't think anyone, even at that time in their right mind, would a single young lady want to walk at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
from the casino to her place out there. I think she had this brand new car, which she probably was eager to be driving.
and she was supposedly afraid of the dark. So why would she want to take that walk anyway?
I've heard that she liked to walk home from work, but she just started there, you know, and she was supposed to meet her friend that night.
Yep.
So I can kind of imagine that she leaves her car at home because her friend is going to pick her up.
No, it was the following night.
But they didn't, according to that interview that Morph did with her, the friend, it didn't sound like it was that well arranged. They hadn't spoken, probably because she just moved. She may not have even had a phone in her apartment hooked up yet. But it didn't sound like they had spoken in a week or something. Like
it doesn't. It seems like a reckless plan to not take your car and assume that this friend who's traveling some distance is going to arrive at 2:00 in the morning, and that they were going to hang out starting at 2:00 in the morning. Maybe.
No, they weren't. No, they weren't.
Oh, you said it's the next night. That's.
She wasn't due to meet her the night she went missing. It was the following night or the night after that. But Joanne Getchie elaborated that it certainly wasn't the night that Donna Lass went missing. It was the following night, I believe. Because when Joanne Getchie arrived at the. She had a discussion till about 4 a.m, didn't she, with one of the security guards, and they were fobbing her off, basically saying they didn't know where she was, blah blah this. But so if she was due into work that evening, they would have said, yeah, she hasn't turned up tonight, but they didn't say that. So she wasn't. She wasn't going to meet Donna the night she went missing. It was the following night.
So that would have been the Sunday then?
Sunday evening, wouldn't it? Or was it Monday evening? What was the 6th? It was early Sunday morning, wasn't it?
And that's why I'm not sure anything happened at work, because nobody reported seeing anything. So,
but it's weird to leave your uniform at work.
Yeah, true. I don't know what her process was,
The answer could easily be found if we knew where her apartment keys were. If she was abducted from work, my guess is the apartment keys would have gone missing with her.
Right.
Now, did the landlord, when he went to the apartment, find her keys in the apartment? If they were in the apartment, then she could easily have been attacked in her apartment and the killer took her out. There would be no need for him to take the keys if he could just shut the door without a key and remove her body. But if she was abducted from the car park, the casino, or anywhere on the way home, I'd expect her keys to be missing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
But we don't know, do we?
There's a lot we don't know.
Some stuff we don't know.
Sorry, gentlemen, I have to jet.
No worries.
Thanks a lot, Ross, for having me on.
Oh, good, man. Thanks for joining us. Come back soon. Maybe we'll do more, Zodiac Canonicals with Andrew and maybe some of your theory of your unreleased POI that you cracked.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks,
brother.
guys.
Appreciate you. Have a good night.
Hi, Richard.
All right. Let's here. I'll drop out Adam. Thank you for coming on. That was cool. Druzer's brother. Let's get a little bit of, I actually did find. So here's the article here. Gunman shoots at pair with Tahoe with a shotgun. I don't know why it's stuck like that. True, but we'll just deal with that size.
So that's the 69 article then, Richard?
Yeah, that's December the 13th, 69.
Okay.
Happened about just before 10 o'clock. And a guy approached a couple on the west terminus of Saddle Road. Heidi Hoffman and Lenny Parsons, and they'd parked their vehicle at the end of that road.
Yep.
That's not far from Heavenly Valley Ski Resort.
Yep.
And they were sitting on nearby rocks, and the person approached them with his flashlight, then extinguished it, and then the attack began, and he shot at them.
Yeah.
With a
About
shotgun.
25 to 30 yards from them, the light went out and a shotgun roared. The girl whose back was to the assailant was hit by about 40 light pellets and Parsons 7. Doctors later removed 23 pellets from her and 4 from him, but were unable to retrieve the rest. Police later found empty 12-gauge shells on the road. Officers said that the pair likely would have been killed if a heavier shot had been used. The victims could give no reason for the attack. I mean, it almost sounds like the point of the attack wasn't even murder, Richard, given that it was those light pellets, and somebody that owns this amount of firearms probably knows the difference,
Well, this is 69 now. So he's what, 19 years old?
Yeah.
He'd be 22.
Oh. Gosh.
He was born in 1947.
Alrighty.
He's crazier than we thought. I mean, if this is indeed Holt, and obviously the comp sketch seems to match with the side-by-side you did, Druzer. But, attacking the lone women at 2 o'clock in the morning from their work commute is one thing. Walking up to this, what is this, a couple of 2 or 4, and then just unloading light pellet shotguns, it's seemingly different behaviorally,
Yeah, it's kind of different from Zodiac and Holt.
That's true.
From what we know. But we don't know much. I mean, I guess if robbery and sex or reporting to the police wasn't on the table, then that's a weird crime.
You know, you'd think he would have that article in his treasure trove, Rich, the way he had the other car stealing one.
Well,
Yeah.
you'd think so, wouldn't you?
Um,
But that was dated December the 13th. I've just checked something up, and the phone call from the so-called Zodiac to Incline Village in Lake Tahoe was reported in the Sacramento Bee newspaper, I believe, on December the 15th, if I've got this right.
Oops, I did not mean to. Not that I disagree with the comment. Sorry about that. Yeah, no, that's interesting, Rich.
I'm just trying to double check. Yeah, threatening phone calls reported in the Sacramento Bee newspaper on December the 15th, 1969. This therefore would have been 2 days after that shotgun attack, wouldn't it?
So what are you thinking? You thinking Holt could have made that call and he's got this impersonation of the Zodiac obsession going on?
Well, you never know, do you? It seems to tie up.
Yeah. I think it makes some sense. Definitely interesting stuff. I don't know. I'm pretty amazed at it's almost like if it's not him making the call to the jobs in both cases, then like Adam was saying that he copycatted it, because it seems a little bit too coincidental. You know what I mean?
I'll correct it. The newspaper article was December the 15th, but the phone calls came in November. So the phone calls threatening buses in Incline Village came the month before the shotgun attack, but it wasn't reported in the newspapers till December the 15th. So
same month as the Zodiac's bus bomb.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's why we think it could be a copycat.
Mm-hmm.
And how much of that bus bomb was revealed in the press in 1969? Did they do anything until May 70?
In what respect?
Well, we have they didn't publish that part of the bus bomb letter.
Public reporting.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I don't think that the press acknowledged a bomb threat until May of 1970.
Well, what to me is unusual is this threat on Incline Village. Is that the sort of thing the Zodiac would have spotted in the newspapers to then start using the Pines card and pretending to be responsible for Donna Lass 2 years later? Or could it really be the Zodiac killer who continued in Lake Tahoe 2 years later with Donna Lass? That's the question.
I mean, I'm open to both, but I think it's more realistic that he saw it and kind of did a copycat type of thing with the peek through the pines card, because that's more in line with insinuating Richard Raditich. There's a hell of a lot more down there in my southern, activity. It in my opinion, he claimed more things than he actually did, so it seems to fit the pattern.
I mean, the reason I believe the Pines card is from Zodiac is because the Monticello card used exactly the same playbook. It identified the burial site of Kathy Snoozy. So we've got that. We've got the 148 character cipher and letter, which mentions about skinning 3 little girls, and I'll make a suit from the skin. And that's out of the playbook of Ed Gein, where he dug up bodies and wanted to make a suit from the skin of all the bodies he dug up from the cemetery to actually modify into his mother. And then you go back to the identification of the burial site of Donna Lass in the Pines card. You've got burial link through 3 communications. Now, did Joseph Stephen Holt really just continue with this theme, or was this it seems too much of a coincidence to me, which suggests to me the Pines card was from Zodiac.
I think it's more likely to be from Zodiac than Holt. I think it's more likely to be from a hoaxer than Holt. But the crime itself, I think Holt is a hell of a suspect.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't know that he has the creativity to keep all those Zodiac themes going. Edward Gain is the inspiration for Leatherface and Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Whoever wrote the Pines card, if it wasn't Zodiac, it was certainly someone who did their homework. We have the hole punch that was used in October. We have the upside down writing and clippings from the newspaper. Both seem to be using what looks like a pencil. Is that writing in pencil on all of those correspondences, you think?
What do you mean, all correspondences?
Well, the 13-hole punch card and the Pines card, and even the Halloween card. It seems to me like they're all using like some sort of black or dark pencil, and there's sort of overwriting on all of them.
Oh, I see.
Like it's sort of sketched in as opposed to confident strokes of writing. Now, whether that's for obfuscation or style, I don't know.
I mean, it all boils down. I mean, you know my opinion on everything, Drew, but because that Monticello card says near Monticello in the woods dies April. Well, you know that Kathy Biek died in the woods in April, and Monticello was the neighborhood where Kathy Snoozy was buried, and she was Biek, Snoozy, and Furlong were all linked to the same guy. That's why I don't believe it's a coincidence with the Pines card. It's exactly the same. Like I said, burial, emphasis, same as the 148 character cipher. So I find it difficult to put this Pines card in the hands of Joseph Stephen Holt. But then we go back to the measurements again, even taking the measurements away, flipping the card round. It seems to suggest knowledge of the burial site of Donna Lass, unless it's just my imaginings.
Well, it's not your imaginings. It's either a hell of a coincidence, which we can add to the pile, or it's Zodiac being craftier than we'd imagined.
I mean, this is unlikely, Richard, because of your articles and your research. Could it be possible that Zodiac just kind of guessed that location, and it ends up being, I know it'd be like low probability, but then it ends up being semi-right, if you just kind of spitballing. Richard just kind of re-explained this, but he's referring to the burial locations in both instances.
Could it be guesswork? I suppose anything's possible, but you've got the high elevation location, which is where her remains were found, around in the snow. You've got the Pines element of the Pines postcard, and she was found near Pines trees. She could have been disposed of in multiple different ways, so that's a coincidence. Never mind the punch hole being placed west of the Sierra Club, which was Clare Tappin Lodge, and it measuring the right distance when you apply it to the map scale. All of these things have to tie in as either wild imaginings on my part, or it was created deliberately and accurately. And again, like I said, the 1986 letter mentioning what we believe would be Nevada, all over the state of California and Nevada, that arrived just a few months after her remains were identified in the paper as remains, but not Donna Lass. This is another weird coincidence.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Dan.
I suppose if you look at things long enough, you can create enough links. Like I've been doing for 12 years, but
no, I think your measurements probably got it right. I mean, it seems sound. It just, there's a lot of.
I know VT Squire disagrees slightly with the measurements, but I took his measurements and they're actually more accurate than mine, in the sense that if we apply his measurements, the jawbone is actually closer to his measurements than mine, but they still fall in the punch hole, which, like I said, is 1.5 miles in east to west on that punch hole and north to south when you overlay it.
Yeah.
So he's actually more accurate than me if his measurements are to be believed. So I think either way, we're both in the punch hole, and that's the point behind the card, in my opinion. Maybe.
Yeah. And like the bomb threat itself, it's a combination of super sophisticated and crude, rudimentary mathematics, and we couldn't expect more given the circumstances.
I mean, another question is why such a specific location and pinpoint accuracy of Donna Lass when he really gives no other details about it other than sought victim, peek through the pines in the Sierra Club, you know, no mention of the casino or the nurse, as opposed to I buried my bus bomb death machine. It was a way more vague location description of the bomb. You'd think that that's something he would have preferred to be found, because if the bomb is dug up, that's a much more serious threat. Oh my God, what a menace. He could be burying bombs on every street near every bus, you know? Whereas he seems to go through much more effort to put the punch hole and give these around the snow through the pines details that he doesn't really give in other circumstances. I know that's extrapolating, you know, the brain of a psychopath, Richard, but
he did expand on the bus bomb threat in the little list letter when he did the black circle at 4 radians and magnetic north.
Surely.
He then said that the Mount Diablo code concerns radians and inches along the radians, which I know probably Druzer and me probably agree that radians and inches have to be part of the solution. Yeah. You know, like I said, you've got the hashtag before. Hashtag means number. You've seen the police Paul Stein police report where it goes #1, number 1. That's what it meant back then. So putting a hashtag before inches obviously means stick a number here, especially when he points an arrow at that area. He's saying insert a number before inches. We've already got 4 radians because he's put that big black circle at 4 radians. So the obvious answer is 4 radians and 5 inches. And as Drew pointed out, stick that into the code. It only goes in one place, and it has to go from position 9 to 32, which leaves only 2 words to slot in the first 8. And that's escalate or estimate. So to me, and I've gone through every combination of number, it's the only 2 that work in that solution.
Yep.
And then, of course, Ingleside has the embankment on it on the right, and it's traveling from north to south, and the sun rises in the east. It all marries up, and it's the road where he was going to place the bomb was right next to Ingleside police station. So he's sort of killing 2 birds with 1 stone here. He's blowing up a school bus right in front of a police station. That's right up Zodiac Street.
Yeah, sure is.
But I mean, I'm more confident on Drew's solution than probably his. I'm pretty certain it's the answer.
I'm pretty certain that if there is an answer, that's it. I'm just not certain that there is an answer. And all of these things go together. And I'm happy to flip-flop opinions. If I felt confident that Zodiac had killed Donna Lass or had buried a bomb, that would open up a million possibilities. I think a lot of the outlier crimes that I'm fairly quick to dismiss, I think I would link if Donna was somewhat confirmed.
Where are you both on Donna Lass being a Zodiac victim?
I'm getting closer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still pretty low on it just because I like the card, the Peek Through the Pines card, but I'm not totally out on it. But how can it even be confirmed? Like, you know, Adam and Andrew were saying before, we don't know anything about, you know, was her body literally thrown out the window? Was it just her skull that was thrown out the window? Was it a shallow grave? If the only information we have is the skull was found years before they announced it to us, it doesn't really give us a whole lot of other information about the grave site. You know, I know people have suspected she was, you know, strangled by rope and, you know, all these other supposed more Zodiac connections, but it's just highly difficult to verify anything, you know what I mean, without knowing anything about the circumstances which she's found.
I would have expected Donna Lass to have been buried in a shallow grave. Otherwise, I think she would have been discovered a lot earlier. Mm-hmm. Especially the location she was buried was in a quite well-visited area. You know, there was the lakes there was Chubb Lake, there was Camp Spalding, there was a campsite there. A body just being thrown on the ground, I highly doubt would have gone unmissed until 1986. So it's quite easy to presume that she was buried in a shallow grave, just like Bryn Rainey. And when you think Bryn Rainey and Donna Lass both worked at the casino, where Carol Anderson's body was just dumped on the side of a road the day after, but she wasn't connected to the casino, it could suggest a killer who was connected to them through the casino and didn't want their body discovered immediately to buy himself a little bit more time. Whereas Carol Anderson wasn't connected to him in any way through the casino.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so how far is the Yuba Gap from the casino? It's 14 miles, or is it farther?
Yuba Gap from the casino, about 70 odd miles.
So also, Richard, that's a long 70 miles. Is pretty long.
Is it 70 or 40? 44 or?
I could probably pull it.
It's a long distance. I think if you're going by the Crow or by road.
I'm saying like highways, you know, just for sake of argument.
Off the top of my head, I think it's about 70 odd mile in it, Drew.
I don't know.
So a decent ride to have a dead body in your car for 70 miles straight, significant amount of risk if you were to get stopped and have to explain said situation to highway patrol, you know?
I'll tell you exactly where it is, Ross. It's 5 radians from the Sahara Tahoe. Exactly. So there's another funny little measurement for you.
Yeah. I suppose if you're measuring in radians, yeah, it's definitely an interesting connection.
So what is it, 303 degrees? So that's, yeah, somewhere around there.
So
I'm just, go ahead, Druzer.
I heard that the area where the skull was found was known as the Sierras. Could that possibly relate to the Pines card saying Sierra Club, not as in the Sierra Club, but
it could do
of sort?
Well, when you think of the other nurse who was Hakari, who was a nurse who was murdered, the newspaper report in the Chronicle on the 26th about Donna Lass's disappearance mentioned Judith Hakari,
right? And
it said she was buried in the Sierra foothills. I think it said foothills, but it definitely mentioned Sierra. So I thought that was a possibility where he might have got Sierra from when he authored the Pines card.
And something that was unclear to me, are you 100% that the jaw that was also discovered belonged to Donna?
Oh, because of that debate we've had with that guy.
It's swirling around in my head. I don't know. Is it?
Well, I contacted the Placer County guy and I said, where did you find Donna Lass's remains? And he said, in the Yuba Gap area. So I'm just taking the Placer. I can't remember his name, but I contacted him about a few months ago and asked him where the remains were exactly found. And he said near Yuba Gap. So all I can do is go on what he said. I know there's confusion because that other person goes back to that previous report, didn't he, in the NamUs files. there could have been, because there was other remains found, weren't there, that year in August?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I want to arrive at is how many remains were found in that general area. I'd also like to know what authorities believe about wildlife in the area.
Well, I did go through about 8, 9 of the newspaper articles when Donna Lass's remains were found and tried to read exactly what they said, and they all gave the distance exactly from the casino to where she was found as around, I think it was 44 miles, and it measured the same. The one news report mentioned the body being found by Melvin Bennett and his son. Didn't mention his by name, I don't think, but it mentioned the people who were related to the finding. And so I thought, well, are all these newspapers wrong, and the Placer County police investigator that I contacted wrong as well?
Probably not.
I don't know. I highly doubt it. But I can't find that other article. There used to be a newspaper article about other remains found in a drainage ditch, a skull found. I think that's the one you're on about. Yeah. I can't find the article anymore.
I mean, one thing I was going to bring up, I remember a while back on Tappa Talk, I'm sure you saw it, Drew. Voight posted that thing about that skull that was basically sitting on the bike paths that people were essentially driving by, and it wasn't noticed for a long time. So in rebuttal to that argument, Richard, like up in those, bike pathy, hiking pathy areas, it's not the craziest thing for remains to go unnoticed for some time, not that I'm saying it would be forever, because eventually, somebody takes a look. But I mean, if you're just flying by on a mountain bike or something, cross country skiing or whatever, you might not notice every little detail in the rocks,
Well, it wasn't noticed for 15 or 16 years, but then it was noticed from the road.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. So there's really not any consistency with the observations. But again, we don't know if Donna was killed at that location where she's found. But the point I was making, it's like, if she wasn't, then that's a significant amount of transportation for the body from Zodiac, who from the canonicals never even touched a body once, well, other than Paul Stein, but essentially left him in the same cab. Didn't move it, didn't really move anything that we know of other than Stein, which is, in the front seat of a cab. So it's like, it's a total change up if he abducts her either on the commute home or at her residence and then brings her out to the Yuba Pass. It seems like, and I'm not saying it's impossible, it just seems like a departure from what we previously know.
But Zodiac aside, it does seem consistent with a killer who tries to buy more time.
Yep.
You're looking a little fuzzy there, Russ.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on over here, guys. I got some, I don't know what's going on. First Richard with the audio, now me with the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Bryn Rainey was buried in a shallow grave only about a couple of miles away from the 1390 Keller address.
Yep.
So he obviously went to more lengths if he was the murderer of Donna Lass. Maybe responding to the fact she was discovered a month later.
Yeah, any way you slice it, Rainey and Lass seem known to the killer. And Anderson did not.
Well, where are you on that now? On him being responsible for her murder?
Well, because of the information we have, and the information we have seems to point to Holt. And there's a lot of information we don't have. So I don't know. I could certainly be talked out of it. I mean, I hate saying this is the guy when he didn't live there, only his parents did.
Yeah.
I don't care for the idea that the killer didn't write the Pines card. So I have nothing to conclude, but if I had to conclude, I'd say Zodiac wrote the Pines card, Holt did the murder.
I mean, there's a strong argument for Zodiac with the Pines card. There's a very strong argument for Holt. So the chances of it being a third party, you'd probably believe, is pretty remote.
Yeah, I do believe it would be remote. And
But
there's a lot to suggest that Zodiac sent that card. And I don't think any of us have a problem believing that Zodiac would send that card having nothing to do with the disappearance.
And nobody seriously believes that Joseph Stephen Holt is the Zodiac.
I would need so much more.
I mean, he doesn't. Did we ever find height and weight on him? He doesn't. He looks too skinny to match the description. You know, seems like he was pretty busy in '69 through '79, as it were.
Well, don't forget he lived in San Jose, and we've got the San Jose connection with Snoozy and Furlong running through a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not the worst suspect. We don't know enough to
And we've got the Red Rider Holt connection.
Yeah, and Shake Dog Shake has traced the genealogy, and they're actually related.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh, brilliant.
What's the Red Rider stuff?
The Tim Holt comic with the Wheel of Death and all that jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah, did he choose that because of the name Holt? Is this like a sly?
Oh, the author. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so maybe a few years from now we'll get some more information, have a better context for evaluating him as a Zodiac suspect.
Yeah,
I don't like Holt for Zodiac right now. I'd need a little bit more.
No, I don't. I'm just playing games here.
No, it's interesting. I mean, it warrants the question, but we need a little bit more.
He simply crosses his T's too high to be Zodiac.
There's no Candy Cane J's, Rich. I'm out. I need more Candy Cane J's.
Hey, if they search his house and found cryptograms in his house, I'd be getting a little bit worried.
Yeah, I mean, if you search all his properties and start to find, perfect 9mm Lugers and more of a match and bus bombs to the perfect diagram specs, okay, yeah, then I'm in.
Well, just at a cursory glance, you can probably add more for Stephen Holt being the Zodiac killer than most Zodiac suspects named to date, from what we just said.
Yeah,
that's true.
Confirmed killer.
That's also because most suspects don't have much, Rich, and let's start off with that.
Yeah.
Where are you at?
Oh, go on.
Go ahead.
No, carry on.
Do you still like Doer? Have you seen or heard anything more on him? Or
no, I don't like Paul Dorr for the Zodiac. I like his approach where he was starting to try and rule Paul Dorr out of the equation.
Sure.
I don't think even Jarrett Kobach pushes it too much. But yeah. I liked his analytical approach to the way he presented in his book, because he sent me a copy and I went through it, and it wasn't like a Graysmith book, making up false connections. It was very in depth, very deeply researched, and I respected the way he'd written the book, and I thought it was one of the best presentations I've read thus far. That's really what I was saying. And Jarrett Kobach, I've spoke to I had emails from, and he's very, very intelligent guy.
Yeah, and some helpful research for sure.
Oh yeah, well, he sent me that great stuff on Robert Salem, didn't he? And he sent me other stuff as well.
Yeah, that October 5th article, which after we'd spoken, I realized that that was from Reuters. So even though it was an Orlando, Florida publication, if it went to Reuters, then obviously it was circulated farther than that.
And he sent me another article, I can't remember the year, it might have been the 80s, where some guy who I tried to contact but I couldn't get through to mentioned that they had all of Zodiac's fingerprints and he knows them off by heart, sort of thing. So I don't know where he derives this from, but he was some lab technician or something like that. I'll send you the article if I can root it up. But yeah, I don't think from what.
Ross just came into focus.
I turned off my autofocus, so after 20 volumes of the series, I learned how to do that. So PXF Tech on point as always. Anything else you guys want to hit upon, or before we?
I'd like to address Mikey Banana's comment.
Sure. How do you send him How does he send you a document? This?
You could send me something through Tapatalk. I go by the name Druzer there, or you could join us on Discord.
Any final thoughts, gentlemen? I did see something on your old YouTube, Rich, your breakdown of the Lake Herman Road shell trajectory, which I did agree with. It sounded like at the time you were leaning into 2 assailants. Did that change over time?
No, I don't subscribe to that, but I was posing it as an idea, and that was simply because of the lost shell casing. That was all that was.
Yeah.
I've done a bit more analysis recently, looking at Ray Grant's. Now I've come to realize the police report never ever said that Bingo Westner saw the Chevrolet as he was coming out the gate. He said while he was checking his sheep, and where he checked his sheep borders that turnout. So he was actually, what I believe, on foot. He was never in a vehicle. And the 2 sightings together, because there's a discrepancy. Ray Grant thinks that Robert Connolly and Frank Gasser went past that turnout at 10 o'clock. No, they didn't. They went past at 9. They're 2 separate sightings. They've just been misinterpreted by the police, and you can see where they say that in the police report. So there were 2 daughter ranches, you see. One was on the south side of the lake, and the other one was bordering that turnout.
Oh.
And he tended sheep east of the pumping station. And when you tie that in with the map, the old map showing the Dotter Ranch, now it might not. Certainly there was a Dotter Ranch still there in '68 behind the lake at the south side of the lake. As for the other Dotter Ranch, whether it was still in the hands of Frank Dotter at that point, it's neither here nor there. But that's where he was tending his sheep. Just read the police reports at Lake Herman Road again, and not once does he say he was in his vehicle when he saw the red pickup truck go by or saw the white Chevrolet in the turnout. He didn't say either of those things. The police got the 2 statements and they coalesced them together. What they should have done was interview Bingo Westner a second time and get his statement clarified. And also, if you look at Graysmith in his book, he says an unidentified truck came out the turnout. Now, Ray always has a go at me saying, how do they recognize the lights weren't shining into that turnout? How do they recognize the Rambler or the vehicles on that side of the turnout? The west side, I think he complains about. But how on earth, with that turnout gate entrance was about 100 feet from the road back in '68. So how on earth would he know for certain that was the Bingo Westner's truck coming out that gate? There was no description of it, no nothing. My guess it was a completely separate truck coming out that gate at 9 o'clock. If you can't recognize a vehicle parked on the east or west bank of the turnout, you're certainly not going to recognize the truck coming out the gate even further back. So Ray Grant's argument falls apart there.
Makes a lot of sense. What about the Impala there? In the timeline, isn't there this random Impala sighted? I always wondered what the deal with that was.
Well, if what I've done recently is correct, the Impala was there at 9, it was there again at 10, and it was probably still there at 10:15. And I think Ray is right about Helen Axe. I don't think she saw the Faraday Rambler. I think she saw a Chevrolet. For the very notion that if Bingo Westner was walking in the field, sees a Chevrolet Impala facing in at the gate, then that would have to have left shortly after he departed the scene. It would have had to have left. The Faraday Rambler would have had to arrive 15 minutes later and parking in the identical position facing the gate for Helen Axe to go past and see it in the identical place. That's too much of a coincidence for me in short time. That she cited a Rambler facing the gate, and Bingo Westner saw a Chevrolet facing the gate. Robert Connolly saw a Chevrolet facing the gate. And like I said, for that to be the Rambler, would the Rambler arrive and park up by the gate facing in a lonely turnout? Do you think that's where David Faraday would have parked? I doubt it. He was only ever reported as being on the east bank and the west bank, not facing the gate, right up by it. So I find it highly unlikely that she saw the Rambler. I think she saw the Chevrolet Impala. And like I said, ermine white in dull conditions appears light brown, exactly the same color as the Rambler.
Why do you think David wouldn't have parked in that manner, like facing the gate?
Well, if I was going to a turnout with my girlfriend late at night in a lonely turnout, I would want my eyes partially on that road. I wouldn't want to be facing into the gate where I haven't got a sight behind me. So I think logically he would have either parked on the east bank, like he was cited by certain eyewitnesses. I believe he moved to the west bank halfway up to get out the gaze of headlights. But do you think if you were parking in a lonely turnout, you would want a visual on that road?
I don't know that I necessarily would if I'm a kid in a small town, not worried about a murderer.
But do you find it a coincidence that when he parked up, he parked up in facing the gate just like the Chevrolet was there probably a handful of minutes earlier? All that happened in the space of 15 minutes. I find that pretty less likely than if it was a Chevrolet throughout.
I mean, this is totally random, Rich, but is it possible the Zodiac made him move the car, turn it around for some unknown reason?
Well, I speculated that he came at 9 and he went hunting in the Venetia pumping station and around there. That's why he had a gun sight attached to him. Mm-hmm. Connolly and Gasser arrived with guns and dogs. He probably thought it wise to get out the area. So he got back in his vehicle, drove away, came back at 10, went back in hunting for victims again. There's probably the same thing happened. He gets back in his Chevrolet just after Bingo Westner sees it at 10. I presume at around 10:29, because Helen Axe goes down, sees it parked in at the gate. He arrives back at 10:29 after his second attempt at hunting people. He turns it round, and just as he's turned it round, Helen Axe comes back the other way and now sees the vehicle facing out of the turnout. He then pulls out the turnout, and then we see another Chevrolet up by Stan, up by Columbus Parkway a few minutes later, 10:30 again. So although that sequence of events follow each other nicely, but the vehicle shifting position from facing into the gate to facing out of the gate ties in with somebody coming back to that Chevrolet and turning it round just before Helen Axe comes back up the road. Mm-hmm. So it plays into the notion that we have a suspicious Chevrolet Impala that could have been there for 1.5 hours on and off that night. So if I believe he lives by the payphone as well, and the Michael Mageau really did see a light brown vehicle, which again is an ermine white, appears light brown in dark conditions, we could be looking for somebody who drives a 59 or 60 Chevrolet Impala who lives by the payphone, who is about 40 years of age based on Presidio Heights. That's where I would have searched a mile radius around that payphone for somebody with that vehicle and somebody about 40, and the rest would slot into place.
Yeah, that's why I was asking about the Impala. Currently at this time, you're of the opinion that the Impala was most likely the Zodiacs, or, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, with Ray Grant on this one, I think the best bet is that Impala. The people who drove that Impala never came forward. Maybe they didn't want to get involved. Maybe they feared being implicated. Who knows? But they never came forward. And if I'm correct, it was there for an hour and a half, 45 minutes before a double murder happened, when there was an unidentified car to the right of the Faraday Rambler. It's all a little bit too convenient.
Yep.
So, like Kim Rossmo said, somebody will do hard and long searches before they actually find a victim, and it may have begun at 9 and it may have ended at 11:15.
The only problem I see, Rich, is I know you're not a big fan of it, but I am. The William Crowe story, he calls it what, a blue Valiant Druzer? Is that what he called it?
Yeah, he denied saying that later, but that's what the
Yeah,
So it doesn't give me a whole lot to work with, Rich, but I'm going to use it anyway.
His second statement claimed it was a light Chevrolet. Whether you believe him or not is neither here nor there. But also, Ray questions why, if Connolly and Gasser are hunting in the field, why William Crowe doesn't hear any gunshots. But it doesn't say that. He doesn't say in the police report he was in the turnout from 9:30 to 10. It says the Lake Herman area. He was testing his vehicle in that turnout when he saw that car coming down. He could have been in that turnout for 1 minute between that half an hour stretch.
For sure.
He tests the car, he drives it up and down, he comes back, he might have parked it again, tested it again. He doesn't have to be in that turnout for any more than 1 or 2 minutes in that half an hour. So
yeah, he said he was just flipping switches and like prepping the car, like you said. So
yeah, you've got to test it to drive it. Yeah. So you're not going to be in that turnout for half an hour mucking around.
It doesn't sound like an unusual spot to hear gunshots either. Like,
no.
So
I not think much of it.
I mean, I tend to think it's a likely story how much he embellished it, or that the fish got bigger after the catch, as Rich said, is open to interpretation. But could it just be that either one of your opinion? Could it just be that he got the color and the car wrong because he was flustered in the moment? Could it be that same Impala? Basically, is what I'm asking. That Impala came and he gets in this supposed so-called chase, and then later on it turns up back at the turnout.
Well, we know if it was a brilliant white Chevrolet Impala, it's not going to get mistaken for a light brown car, right? Because that stays white. Mm-hmm. But like I said, in low conditions, an ermine white does turn light brown. So, and the factory settings were made in ermine white. Not all of them, but some of them were. So, this is the question. Majot knew nothing about cars. That was quite obvious. He didn't even know it was a Mustang or a Corvair.
Crowe didn't seem to either, for what it's worth.
And what?
I said Crowe didn't seem to know anything about cars either, for what it's worth.
No. But he said a light-coloured Chevrolet. He didn't say a white.
Mm-hmm.
So
he's correcting the reports. So I don't think he would be doing that unless it was honest. That doesn't add to the mythological situation he may have been embellishing.
Right. So you don't like it either, Druzer? You think that it just kind of, he saw the articles later on about the events of Lake Herman Road and then his story altered, or where are you at on it? I don't know.
Well, I guess I'm saying I'm treading the line both ways. I think he was, and that's even worse, isn't it? What are you gonna do? No, I think it was probably an honest correction with regard to the car he saw. But going from 2 drivers to 1 driver who looked like the Presidio sketch, I don't believe.
Sure.
So I guess I believe parts and I disbelieve parts.
But Helen Axe also, she could have interjected herself into the scene and in her mind thought she saw the Faraday Rambler when it was reported in the newspapers. Now, if she did see an ermine white Chevrolet, her headlights would not have been shining directly in. That could have appeared light brown. And if, like I said, when an ermine white is in low level light conditions, it turns light brown, light tan, just like the Rambler. So I could understand her easily mistaking an ermine white Chevrolet for a light tan Rambler.
That's the argument I was making about the Impala, Rich. I was just saying if he's in a supposed car chase, how good is his, gauge of the paint color behind him when he's in this high-speed chase, adrenaline pumping, and could it have just been slightly off? And that's all I was going with that.
Yeah, and how much of an expert on vehicles was Helen X? I know the difference between the rear of a Rambler and the rear of a Chevrolet, but some people just don't know their vehicles. They'll go by color rather than model.
I don't know the reports well enough to where these interviews were conducted, and I think this has been brought up before, but if they're conducted at the station, and at the station is the Rambler, then it's maybe easier for your mind to fill in the blanks when you're saying, yes, I saw that car that I just saw 2 seconds ago. That's the car I saw.
You see it on the way into the interview, and then it gets stuck in the subconscious or whatever, fills in the gaps.
No one listened to me, though. I don't know the reports well enough to...
Yeah, I read them once. I'm about on the same level. I don't think either of us have probably analyzed it as much as Rich. I mean, the other thing that I gleaned from that is the back and forth, like, kind of what Rich is saying with the axe recounting is like Peggy Yore's story about how she comes out with the like, my gun is bigger than yours quote. And then they asked the hunters, right, Rich? And he's like, he said they didn't even talk or something, right? They just flashed the flashlight in the car and they didn't, or if they did, she didn't say that, So it was almost like.
I thought it was the other way around.
Did he say that to her?
That he said that she said that, and then she denied having said it.
Right. Yeah. That's
which makes some sense to me actually.
Yeah.
Because this is a black couple talking to the cops regarding a murder and something aggressive that they said about their handgun. I'm not surprised that she didn't want to repeat that.
Yeah. I don't. Did you have anything on that comment, Rich, or that exchange?
No, I just know it was at the entrance to the Marshall Ranch. That's where I probably believe that Bingo Westner saw the vehicle parked in the area. My guess, earlier that day before he came to check on his sheep, he was coming from Vallejo. He either saw that red pickup truck in that turnout, exactly the same as the yours did later that evening, because there isn't the tree coverage over that Marshall Ranch entrance. So either way, you'd easily see a red pickup truck parked in that turnout if you'd gone past it. And like I said, he said parked in the area. He didn't say the red pickup truck go by. So I think it's two separate sightings. I just wish the police had gone into more detail with interviewing the witnesses. Then it would have been clarified a little bit more. But you can see in the police report, they did make assumptions. They got the two statements and they tried to coalesce them. It wasn't Bingo Westner ever saying what the police said. They said it on his behalf. That's where the mistake has come in. But I don't know why they should have gone into more detail. We've got no reports on whether they interviewed any businesses in the area to see if they'd had a visit from somebody driving a white Chevrolet. I'd like to know that as well. I mean, this is crucial.
I'd like to see a lot more reports. I'd like to even know how much from Lake Herman Road we don't have. Because we see them saying in the reports, well, we're going to follow up on this and that and the other thing, and we're going to talk to your buddy, and then we don't hear a follow-up. That doesn't mean that they didn't do a follow-up. It just means that we don't have all the reports.
And don't forget, Ross, if you're going out and your intention is to hunt in the fields by the Benicia pumping station, maybe target somebody like a sheep herder, Bingo Westner, or target a ranch, in the area. If you're doing that, you would need a gun sight because those hillsides would have been pitch black. Yeah. If you don't need a pencil flashlight if you're going into a turnout to attack a couple, because you just use the vehicle headlights to illuminate the car,
right?
And at the same time block it in. You wouldn't pull to the right side of it. That doesn't make any sense. Pull in behind it. You've got illumination from the headlights. You order them out the car, you can see. There's no issue. You don't need a pencil flashlight. But if you're hunting on the hillside, you certainly would need a pencil flashlight because it's absolutely pitch black and there's hardly any illumination in that area.
That's an excellent observation. It really speaks to the idea that he didn't know exactly what situation he was going to be in.
No, he went out with the intention of hunting on the hillsides. He went away, came back, Conley was there with the guns and dogs again. He gave up, went away, came back the third time. Faraday and Jensen are in the turnout. He thinks, hey, here's my opportunity now. And his plans change. So maybe his intention was never to hunt a couple in a turnout originally.
Yeah, I mean, that's something Zodiac agreed with, right? When they tried to say there was a full moon or whatever, and he saw the profiles in the moonlight, and he kind of rebutted that to some degree.
I also got the idea that, although this goes against what I've just said, we know that Graysmith mentioned Frank Gasser with a flashlight looking into the Impala.
Yep.
Once they got into the field, they noticed the Impala in the turnout and they shone a flashlight into it. I imagine Bingo Westner, sheep herding at that time of night, needs a flashlight.
Yeah.
And absolutely. I'm wondering whether when Zodiac ended up writing his letter, this is where he got the idea of the flashlight from. But that goes against...
And he didn't, yeah.
Yeah.
But we certainly can't prove that he had it.
My guess, if he's intelligent enough, he would have gone with a flashlight in the first place. Because if he's hunting on that hillside, he'd certainly have needed it. Because he certainly seemed to know about the area, was silhouettes on the horizon and the high hills in the area. If he was familiar with that area, if he went hunting there, I would expect him to have had some sort of flashlight or implement attached to his weapon. But, it goes totally against driving up into a turnout and attacking a couple. You don't need a flashlight for that. You're within touching distance of them.
Yeah, 100%.
Flashlight's more fun?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, if he's as obsessed with the Alfred Hitchcock and the movie and film and TV references as the museum piece influence, you know what I mean? You'd think that would be a no-brainer.
Well, I think he liked that kind of resourceful techniques. He's obviously a handy guy.
Well, he did mention in his 408, didn't he, how he liked hunting people. So maybe this ties in with the Lake Herman Road thing.
Yeah, seems to make sense with it being a hunting location.
Yeah, he does the crime, it gets some attention, the attention dies, and then when he decides he wants to kill again and make a bigger splash media-wise, 7 months have transpired, and he mythologizes his great kill, and now shooting kids in a car is hunting. He's got the flashlight. He's got the draw to old literature. Maybe he had a name at that point. Maybe he didn't. But
Yep.
I agree with what Richard was saying in our last panel discussion. That I too take Zodiac at his word for a lot of the things he wrote. There's not a lot of motivation for him to lie when his main objective is to prove his involvement.
Yep, I agree.
He just got a bit hard and loose with the facts later on. That's it. But I think for his crimes, he went out of his way to prove he was the killer.
Yeah, that seems to have been the point.
Yep, early on, absolutely.
And when the proof dries up, he's probably not responsible for it unless somebody had maybe suggested this about the Pines card in advance of Donna Lass's. I mean, if I'd have found all that and presented that as an argument before her body was found and said she'll be found at Yuba Gap, and then she was, maybe I'd have been treated a little bit differently. I don't know.
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone likes a good prediction and a correct prediction in true crime.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I was stupid enough not to get it in time.
No, I think the work still stands. Yeah, boys, we're past like 2 hours, so I'm probably going to wrap us unless there's any final questions for Andrew and Richard in the chat. But
I'm sorry about events earlier, but next time I come on here, I know that I'll plug my camera in, and if I'm only going voice only, I'll enter, and then I'll be able to pull it out afterwards. So sorry about that initial mess.
I thank you for putting in the work and not just giving up on it. You eventually got here, and we really needed you.
That's what I was worried about, because then we got a bunch of, well, of course, Richard's articles are below in the description, and Pixie shared them earlier in the chat. But yeah, then we got a bunch of screenshots from Zodiac ciphers, and me and Andrew were like, so what are we looking at here?
It's a good job. It's a good job my camera wasn't working. I mean, my microphone wasn't working for the first half an hour. You'd have heard a few F-bombs.
Wouldn't be the first time. If you've seen the movie review show, me and Gaz have, we've gotten colorful on there and some of the roasts, so it's all good. Wouldn't be stranger to this channel. Sometimes YouTube likes to demonetize from that stuff. It is what it is. Think that's just good.
Is that it? Any final questions now?
I don't think anything else came across in the chat. Let's just see. Announces murders, then hid the I've got enough slaves in the Z340. That's my boy Dion. Oh yeah, Dion's got some new stuff on his channel too, so check that out. Just a general question: motives for the killing, sexual? Probably not, based on anything that we know of. He always managed to finish the women. I mean, that's just Zodiac incompetence, if you ask me. Failed on Hartnell, failed on Majot. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, well, I do want to get Richard back down the line and do, like, maybe everything after Exorcist and kind of zero in on the correspondence. But it sounds like we have some more. Like, I've gone on the Lake Herman Road timeline so many times, Rich. I've gone on your site. I went through the Tapatalk thread. I mean, it still doesn't make sense to me. I've seen the way everyone lays it out, but because we said just that small window, it drives me crazy. I mean, Richard did a really good job explaining it there. I'm still, like, frazzled on it. But that, I'd like to do some Lake Berryessa timeline down the line and some more Presidio Heights. But I think that's everything for me, guys. Shout out to everybody who came through the chat, everybody from Zodiac Theory. Like I said, Richie's articles below. But yeah, I think down the line, Rich, at some point we'll get you back and we'll do like all the correspondence and letters.
Yeah, that'd be great. And good luck to Druzer for tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, sir.
Good luck tomorrow, gents.
All right. We'll talk to you later, fellas.
Have a good show, bro. Have a good day. Thanks, guys.
Cheerio.
Thanks, mates. Rich. Thank you, Drews. See you next time, brother. Let's see. So it's just me. It's just me. Hold on one second, actually. I'm going to make you guys. Now I'm back. Shout out to everybody who came through. Ed, the Walter Matthau movie. Charlie Van Eyck is good and has Andy, the former Scorpio killer. I guess that's the guy who played the Scorpio. Yeah, so the Dirty Harry review is, and we'll talk some Zodiac during that show as well. Oh, man, PFL was crazy. PFL was crazy, Pixie. We're doing Dirty Harry December 14th. So put that on your calendar, and we're going to have Kurosawa before that. Other than that, it's just me and Jerome next Saturday. We're going to be doing his Don Cheney, Sandy Panzarella theory. Maybe talk some of the Four Horsemen theory, which is Cheney and the Allens and Sandy. Talk some Dragon card. So, yeah, me and Jerome next Saturday, and then that's it for Zodtober. Zodiac Files live shows. This was this 15 already? Sounds like this was 15, so me and Jerome will be 16. I'll post that later. We're doing Man in the Attic next Saturday. That's the next review. And not much else for me, but if you guys have any final questions for me in the last couple of minutes, I'll answer them before I bounce. Go pop over to the Teespring, like, sub, share, click the join button. I don't have any plans to do 7, but like if you guys want 7, we can make 7 happen. I'm a big David Fincher guy. I'm more like Fight Club and Zodiac than I am 7, but 7's good. I like 7. Jack the Ripper theory as in general. I haven't covered Jack. I think my boy Spy Fox is doing Jack the Ripper on his channel, the American Spy Fox, and I asked him about doing Jack, but I think we'll be doing, he wants to talk to me about Zodiac. What else was I saying? Yeah, click the check out the Patreon. I have two more Most Dangerous Game adaptations. There's Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity, and then there's Deadly Prey, and after that I'll probably do the 10th Victim, and then anything after that will have to be a yeah, dude, if 7 is your bag and you want to come on for a 7 review, you're more than welcome. Click the join for memberships, join my Patreon. You can join Patreon as a free member as well. I think that's pretty much it on my end. Shout out to Andrew and Adam for coming through. What up, Ray May? You got to come back, brother. You're supposed to do the boys with us, my dude. Ray May has a new battle on Shots Fired Battle League versus Sab Diego. Go check that out. Yeah, Z probably would have liked Saw. I mean, Zodiac was, a bit of a dickhead, so you know what I mean. I'm more into the Most Dangerous Game adaptations, but there was some cool stuff in the last one I did, which was I posted it on the community tab. What was that movie called? I totally forgot what it was called now. It's the one in Australia. Aren't you Hawaiian, Ray May? There's like literally nothing in Zodiac. Have you seen Zodiac's comp sketch, bro? It's a 45-year-old guy with a freaking, you know what I mean? Flat top. Crew cut, you know what I mean? Also, Ray May, you were 0 in 1969. All right, yeah, Filipino is way off, my band. It's a Caucasian 45-year-old white man, at least at Presidio Heights. Now, if you're telling us there's more than one Zodiac, now we're getting interesting. Although I believe the Slaves in Paradise death cult that 69, but according to Thomas Henry Horan, the Slaves in Paradise death cult, I believe, does originate from a Filipino, some sort of offshoot religion. So there's that. I literally have to go to my own community tab now to remember what the hell that movie I watched. I've watched so many of these Most Dangerous Game adaptations. Turkey Shoot. That's what that one was called. Turkey Shoot. Go check that out on Patreon. All right, guys. Doesn't seem to be any more questions for me, so I'm probably gonna jet. But I want to do the boys, and then you guys have the schedule for the rest of the reviews. So as I said, Man in the Attic next Saturday. I mean, we don't really have anything slated for Halloween. I would have liked to give you guys like a peace, brother. Good talking to you. It would have been I would have liked to bring you guys like a grimy, like violent horror for Halloween, like Hellraiser or something that I'm into, but I just haven't gotten to it yet. Special Election Day movie review. Haven't announced it yet, but that's coming up in about 2 weeks. Followed by Toxic Avenger for Pixie on the 9th, Red Dawn for Pixie on the 16th. We're going to do Gladiator 1 on the 23rd. Because Gladiator 2 just doesn't look good to me. And then we're going to do Horizon for Thanksgiving. Do I agree that none of the suspects is the Zodiac? I'm assuming you mean like mainstream known suspects. Yeah, pretty much. I have my own POI that I've never announced it. I have my own suspect that I think is as good or better than most of them. I mean, do I think it's Arthur Lee Allen? Yeah, probably not. That's the subject of the Zodiac book, 1986, Graysmith, and the subject of the Fincher movie. Although the Fincher movie is excellent, it would have been nice if they didn't go so hard on Arthur Lee Allen. But unless they got Don Cheney in there more, you know what I mean, and been like the way that they looked at Rick Marshall and that other guy who was like the pianist at the movie theater. What's his name? Bob Swanson or something. I always forget that guy's name. That's how they should have looked at Cheney and Allen, in the movie. It would have made it a different dynamic. Like, hey, is it more reasonable? Is it these two guys that make movie posters, or is it the guy who literally fingered his friend and was like, it's definitely Allen, that would have been cool. I don't really like any of the main suspects, the mainstream suspects. But I mean, as far as who has the most going for him, Cheney and maybe KQ, maybe Chel Cavalli. I don't know as much about him as Rodelli and Hawley do, but I know a little bit about him. All right, y'all. Think I'm mostly out. Am I writing a book about my POI? No, I'm not writing any Zodiac book, not at this time. I still have episode 5 to do, and I still have episode 6 to do, and I still have episode 7 to do, and I still have episode 8 to do. So I'm not writing crap. Any writing I do will be on my Patreon. You know, if I ever find like anything reasonable about my POI, you know, maybe I'll take it in a different direction. We do have some interesting developments with a possible suspect in Riverside, the Riverside activity. That'll probably come to light before any of the stuff I do. At one point, you know, maybe Dion's getting more active on his channel. Maybe me and him will talk, you know, my suspect angle in relation to his one killer theory. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, even some of the random ones at Tapatalk, you know, like I've looked through all of them, and it's just like, even like what we were just saying about Holt earlier. Sure, you could make more of an argument with Holt, like you have the picture of all those guns. But then it seems like maybe he was only active in that South Lake Tahoe, you know, Lake Tahoe casino area. That was good. The stuff that Adam found on that was really good. But yeah, I mean, if you guys ever want to go back and forth, you know what I mean? I answer most of the comments. You can always hit me on X, the X platform, Ross Tracy at PXF on X. You know, I'm pretty sure you can message me on the Patreon. So pop off there. I believe it's the I Am Not Dion channel. And I'm going to share your video in the community tab too after I watch it, Dion. All right, y'all. Ross PXF, I'm out. Shout out to Richard Grinell. His articles are below in the description. Shout out to Druzer. Get at him on Tapatalk or Discord. I'm not sure what Adam's on, but I'm sure he might be on Tapatalk. That's it for me. We're back next week with Man in the Attic. Like, sub, share. Click the join button for a membership, or get me on the Patreon. Shout out to Pixie for sharing the links and everybody for the modding. Cool show. That was a sick topic. I enjoyed that. That's basically it from me. Yeah, as far as Dirty Harry and all that stuff, you know, we'll get into more of that stuff. I wish there was more decent Zodiac movies, but I think we'll just start with Dirty Harry. Shout out to Altug. He does a great job on the Zodiac theory. I'm out, guys. Like, sub, share. Click the join for membership, and get at me on the Patreon. Everybody have a good weekend. What's left of it.